Hi Quilters, I'm Pam Heller, AccuQuilt's cutting expert.
And I am Erica, AccuQuilt's corporate marketing specialist.
Welcome to the first part of our limited series called Stories of American Quilts. Today we'll be joined by special guest Brandy Maslowski, who will be taking us through the Fabric of a Nation exhibition at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston.
The Fabric of a Nation exhibit features stories behind 300 years of American quilts and is bound to wow you.
So today we want everyone to relax, sit back, enjoy the exhibition, but of course we have a special deal for you in case you weren't able to make all of your holiday purchases.
That is right. So for today, use the code COUNTDOWN to get an extra 30% off your order. Using this promo code will save you up to 45% on dies and up to, get this, 55%
Amazing.
On cutters. Some exclusions apply, so check our website for details.
Get free standard shipping when you place your order today if you live in the contiguous U.S. No code or price minimum needed at checkout.
That's right. Now, to get your order in during the show, you can use your phone's camera to capture the QR image and go right to the site.
If you don't have access to a QR reader, no worries. You'll just want to open up a new tab in your browser, go to that top of the page and click on that plus sign. In the very top box, type in AccuQuilt.com/party to go to the site and place your order. That way you won't miss a minute of this fabulous show.
That's right. Now, we've made holiday shopping easy and worry-free. Review our holiday guarantee and return policy on our website by visiting our return page. And with global shipping supply chain issues happening all the time, be sure to get your purchase in while everything you want is in stock.
Quilters, you can also find our products at your local AccuQuilt retailer. To find the retailer closest to you, check out the store locator at the top of the page at AccuQuilt.com.
Now, you can quilt now and pay later. For more information on financing through AccuQuilt, visit AccuQuilt.com/financing. Well, Quilters, let's get today's show started with our special guest, Brandy Maslowski. Brandy is a retired firefighter. She's a fiber artist, a teacher, and host of the Quilter on Fire podcast.
And Brandy has been so kind to bring us footage today of the Fabric of a Nation exhibit from the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. But before we get into the exhibition quilts, we want to hear more about Brandy and her journey from firefighter turned quilter.
That's right. Thank you for joining us today, Miss Brandy.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, Brandy, we are so curious about your career as a firefighter. Can you tell us a bit about those years?
Yes, I became a firefighter before I was even 20 because it ran in my family. I had a degree in English and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And it was just such an honorable thing that my father and my uncle did for a living. And I thought it would be active, it would be fun, it would be great for the community. So I just dove right in. And the interesting thing about that is sometimes as a firefighter, you see things that are difficult. You see things that you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. I used quilting as a way to ease my troubles.
See, there you go.
All right. Well, then is that kind of what led you from that into fiber art and quilting? I mean, what was your first sewing experience?
Well, when I was young, about 12 years old, I lived across the back lane from a flea market. And I went across there and I saw this woman who had a table full of doll quilt clothes. They were for Cabbage Patch Kids.
Oh,
and that was
the day. Yeah.
That was the rage at the time. I was milling around her table, and finally she asked me to come and sit down, and she taught me how to hand sew clothing. So she really sparked a creative, just a passion in me that I've had to this day.
That's wonderful. Now, Brandy, you're Zooming us via where in the world?
I'm coming to you from Canada, in BC, Canada, and it's Summerland. It's one of the most temperate climates in Canada. I just love where we live. It's in the Okanagan interior.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for allowing us and our quilters at home to get to know you better. One more thing. You have this great story. Can you show us your denim jacket?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. This year was my first year going to Houston Quilt Festival, and I was a podcaster and I was doing video footage, and I wanted my jacket to be memorable so people could recognize me. So here's a little depiction of my logo on the back of my jacket.
Oh my gosh, look at how cool
I love that.
is.
That's amazing.
I love
it's
it.
all hand stitched. Isn't that so fun?
I love
It
it.
is.
I think it's great. All right. So now let's kind of take a look at, right? You're going to start us off. Let's kick us off.
We want to go ahead and get started and learn a little bit more from the curator, I think, about this exhibit. Is that right?
Yes, and Brandy's going to walk us through the oldest quilts on display at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. And just a note, the Fabric of a Nation exhibit is currently on display until January 17th, 2022. So if you're in Boston and you want to take Eric and I, or if you're just in Boston, check it out.
All right, let's learn a little bit about the background of this show.
My name is Jennifer Swope, and I am the David and Roberta Logie Associate Curator of Textile and Fashion Arts at the Museum of Fine Arts, Boston. So, Fabric of a Nation, American Quilt Stories has a deep and complex meaning because it shows the work of many artists over a 300-year period. Many of the stories that we highlight through these beautiful works of art are narratives that have really been under-recognized until recently. And it's our privilege to bring visitors into those stories through these beautiful works of art, which of course are literally of the fabric of our nation. You'll see a range of artists. We have 16 living artists in the exhibition out of 50 works of art, which is really exciting. And we also have works of art that date all the way back to the 17th century. Some of them we know their names and we know the communities in which they were produced, but some, their names have been lost. We have obviously a lot of women artists, which we're really excited about, but there are a few men also. And quilts, as an art form, it crosses all sorts of boundaries. So visitors will see the artworks of African American, Asian American, Latinx, LGBTQ, many different types of makers. Some live and used to live in cities, some live and used to live in rural areas. And again, I think that is what really is so satisfying to see all of these artworks celebrated and that full American mosaic represented in the exhibition.
Oh,
I'm
so
excited.
Interesting. Now, if you all have not seen an exhibit of quilts in a museum setting, it's a little bit different than your regular, area quilt show, right?
It is. And in fact, we had the chance to go to Lincoln at the International Quilt Studies Museum and be able to see those curated pieces.
Right.
It's a whole different look.
It is. And some of these have been studied and researched for as much as 2 years leading up to this exhibition.
Yeah.
So there's so much that goes into discovering the history of the pieces as well as the fabrics and just everything having to do with them.
Right.
Well, Brandy, we're so excited. So let's see what you have to start us off with.
So these first two quilts are by far the most famous quilts at the MFA Boston. They're historical. They're by Harriet Powers, who lived from 1837 to 1910. She was born of slaves, and these quilts depict her deep religious beliefs and the stories of her life even before her time. The second quilt, the Bible quilt, is on loan from the Smithsonian, and these two quilts together, it's a historical moment that they are together on display for the first time.
And Brandy, why were they not ever together? What happened to separate them and then to rejoin them? Because that's an amazing story.
Yeah, so these quilts were originally sold or bought, or they went off into the world separately, and they were never actually together. And so having found them and separately being on display at different museums, now this is the first time they're together. And I actually spoke to Jennifer Swope, the curator, and she said that every single day that these are on display at the Museum of Fine Arts Boston, she was going to go out there and stand in front of them and just take them in every single day. So it's such a privilege to see them together.
And it makes you wonder, does she have other quilts that were separated as well?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We believe there are more out there, but we just don't have them.
Oh, quilters, if you have one of these, call Brandy.
That's right.
All right, what do you have next for us, Brandy?
So this second piece is not a pieced quilt at all. It's from the late 17th, early 18th century. It's hand painted and resist dyed Indian cotton quilt. Wow. So it's actually a quilt, but it's a whole cloth quilt made of cotton silk. These fabrics are known for their lavish designs, their brilliant, fast colors at a time when European fabrics and textiles faded quickly and did not wash well.
Oh, that's right. That amazingly intricate.
And the colors are still so vibrant, which is amazing to me.
Yes, especially like we said, after seeing how the colors had faded over the years at several of the ones that we saw in Lincoln.
Wow, wow, that's amazing. All right, Brandy, what's next for us?
This next piece blew my mind when I walked around the corner. This is a Harry Tyler piece. He lived from 1801 to 1858. This is also not a quilt, not a piece quilt. This is a coverlet with a complex design. So it looked to me like snowflakes when I first glanced at it, but close up, it's actually delicate flowers. So these were made in small shops with hand-woven textiles, and they date back. They put the dates and the name of the company on the coverlets for ownership and to prove that it's their original design.
Wow.
That's
so again, we should always, put our labels on our quilts.
It does.
We talked about that.
It does.
But you know that this is a coverlet because it doesn't have a border across the top, right?
That's right.
To lay on the bed and be turned down. Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. That's fabulous.
So this next piece is called the Paul family quilt. So this is a farm family from the 1830s. It's an embroidered wool quilt, and you can see the intricate embroidery on it. It depicts the lives of the Paul family after migration from Connecticut to Maine. So they established new land with a mix of farming and lumbering.
Now, Erica, you have a great story about this.
I do. I was fascinated to see this one because of the shape. It's shaped so that it's designed to lay on the bed and have the bottom part fold down without having those folds. So it's just going to lay and wrap around the edges of the bed. And I was fascinated because I inherited an antique quilt from my aunt, which is shaped the same way. And it was the only time I'd ever seen a quilt shaped like that. And it made me question whether it really was an old quilt or if it was something new that she just liked because of the shape of it. But I was fascinated to see this and think, okay, it really was an antique quilt.
It was meant to be that way.
She collected quilts. She lived in outside of Boston, Massachusetts. And so I think that it is kind of maybe an Eastern Seaboard kind of thing. And she said it was wool. I don't think mine is wool, but gosh, that would be a very heavy quilt, wouldn't it?
Oh my, yes. Keep you nice and warm in the winter time.
Nice and warm up in Maine.
Oh, wow. All right, Brandy, what's next?
The next quilt is the Carolina Lily Quilt. And this is from between 1830 and 1845, and it features two distinct techniques, floral chintz applique and piecing, and the recently invented roller printing technology. So you would buy prints, cut them up, and piece them back together. So this is the early times of that kind of process.
Right.
Wow.
And we released a die earlier this year called Basket of Lilies.
Yes.
Which is very similar to this pattern. But you and I talk about this, how different a block looks when it's on point.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you can see that. And of course, they wouldn't have had our setting triangles to use to set those on points and make it easy. They would have been doing math and cutting the fabric by hand. And I looked at that, and then the other thing that I saw was that swag, and we do have a swag die as well.
We do.
And it is such a beautiful treatment on it. And again, it looks like it could have been made yesterday, doesn't it?
Just those vibrant colors. Wow, it's stunning. Okay.
Absolutely. So the next quilt is called A Century of Progress. So this is a 1933 celebration. It celebrates the development of science and industry. So what happened, I just poured over this quilt when I walked up to it because the story behind it is that Sears, Roebuck and Company organized a national quilt contest, and there were over 25,000 entries.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
a major retailer, and they retailed quilt kits and batting and sewing tools. So they launched this contest, and this winner is a depiction of a 3-mile site on Lake Michigan,
Right.
and it's dubbed the Rainbow City because of its color. And so the very unique thing behind this story was there was no male entries in this content and in this contest, but decades later, the true maker was revealed that it was the son of the quilter, and his name is Richard Rowley, and he was an architect. So he designed this quilt, and it's believed that he pieced it or quilted it, appliqued it with his mother.
Wow. And you and I were talking about this earlier
Yes.
about how intricate the pieces were and how now that you understand that he's an architect, it makes much more sense, right?
It does.
Yeah.
There were
Just
the
so many
details
pieces.
amazing in it. And I remembered hearing when I first saw this from the exhibit, I thought, okay, that looks vaguely familiar. And I do remember I have heard about this contest before, and it's fabulous to see this quilt then.
Beautiful.
Okay, so the next quilt is the Henry Clay Feathered Star. This is an 1844 quilt from the USA. It's about a politician who is famous and well loved, and he's depicted in the center and surrounded by a wreath of oak leaves. And the photo of him is pulled from an old flag. So the oak leaf symbolizes a crown, which means he was well loved, and there are 26 stars for the 26 states at the
Beautiful.
time.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So is that
And
in indigo blue or is that a black?
Yeah, it's pieced cotton with indigo. And the centerpiece, if you look very closely around him, the centerpiece is tiny discharged stars. And that fabric would have been imported from Britain.
Wow. Okay, so we have a feather star die
Yes.
that would have made this whole process so much easier. But I do love the fact that they took that piece of that flag and took out the center block and added it in there.
Amazing technology to have printed that picture also onto the fabric.
Right.
Was
right.
this the beginning of t-shirt quilts?
Yeah, I believe it was.
Possibly.
I believe it was. Oh, wow. So, Brandy, those first quilts are just
They
stunning.
really are. And we've got more coming up, which I'm so excited to share with everybody.
Yes.
Well, we're going to give Brandy a chance to catch her breath
There
from
we go.
sharing all of those quilts with us and do what we love to do. We're
Yes.
going to give some things away.
Let's do.
So today we're going to give away our AccuQuilt mugs to some of our lucky registered viewers.
That's right. So let's announce today's winners. So today's first lucky winner of an AccuQuilt mug is Pat S. from Waukee Springs, Florida. And the second lucky winner is Mary D. from Jackson, Tennessee.
Our third lucky winner of an AccuQuilt mug is Joyce D. from Granite City, Illinois. And our final winner is, drumroll please, Diane C. from Leslie, Arkansas. Congratulations.
All right, quilters, our friends at Andover Fabrics are helping us make this event even more special.
Oh, yes, I'll hold
Oh,
this one.
yes, please do. By providing us with 2 selections of fabrics to use in our giveaway. Okay, so Erica, we talked about this could go to you and this could go to me.
Yes,
'cause
and we'd be very happy
we
about
would.
it.
So this is that great modern fabric by Andover, those beautiful bright colors. Look at the purples and the grays, and then you have a whole different color palette.
This is just a celebration of blues, and they're just delicious. They're so fun. I could have so much fun with these.
Yes, and there's that teal blue you love.
There's that teal blue that I'm so loving these days, right? Right
Yes.
in through here.
We're going to give it away.
because we love you quilters.
We do.
All right. Our first lucky quilter winner of an Andover
There we
fabric
go.
bundle is, drumroll please, Kathy L. from Danville, Virginia.
And the second winner of a selection of fabric is, drumroll please, Mary D. from North Oaks, Minnesota. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Hey, and a huge shout out to Andover Fabrics for sponsoring today's show. Our quilters will love creating beautiful projects with these fabrics.
I hope we get to see what they make.
Please share with us.
Please. Now, quilters, don't forget that we do have a special promo code for you today. You can get an extra 30% off your order by using the code COUNTDOWN. The promo code will save you up to 45% on dyes and up to 55% amazing on cutters. Some exclusions apply, so check the website for details.
Get free standard shipping when you place your order today if you live in the contiguous U.S. No code or price minimum needed at checkout. All right, quilters, let's look at some more quilts from the Fabric of a Nation exhibition. What's next on the list, Brandy?
Next, we have an album quilt from 1850 in Maryland. So these are a series of squares, each donated by a different person to depict a glimpse of their social, political, or religious life in the city. So this is where we're first seeing domestic women going out and enjoying each other's company, having little get-togethers. It's kind of like the first beginnings of what we would today call a quilting guild.
So detailed. I love that they all collaborated together, that it was, a social activity. And you wonder if they were all trying to show each other up, because that's amazing details in those blocks.
Yeah, they were just incredible.
What do we have up next? I can hardly wait.
The next is the Civil War Zouave quilt from the 1860s in the USA. So this is very different from the contemporary quilts, its contemporaries at the time. There's diagonals involved here. There's pieces from actual uniforms. There's pictorial images, and the images are from the popular press at the time. So it really is like a stamp in time of the era.
And yet, Erica, I think you could use our strip dies to make this.
You could.
We talked about that. This would be really representative of a Quilts of Valor quilt.
Yes, it looks like a piece of modern folk art. Now, are those shapes, are those all applique then, or are those printed?
It's a pieced quilt with applique on top.
It's amazing.
Wow.
But it's so different to see the diagonals, especially after looking at that Baltimore album.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, Brandy, what's next for us?
The next quilt is the Centennial Coverlet. So this is done by an unknown weaver. And to walk up to this quilt in person was absolutely astonishing. It was created in 1876. It's wool and cotton jacquard woven.
Wow.
And walking up to this one, you can't believe that they could weave those intricate designs from start to finish. It's just incredible to see up close in person.
And I thought maybe it was lace that had been tatted and then put over, but that makes much more sense that it was woven.
Right, when we first saw it from a distance, we were trying to figure it out. It is just stunning. And again, here we go right back to label your quilts, how they've woven in the name of the building into the coverlet.
Right.
Yeah. So this next quilt is by Celestine Bachelet, and this is a pictorial crazy quilt. So I loved this quilt because it was so detailed. When you walk up to it, it's not like the usual crazy quilt that you might see. This was created in Boston, Massachusetts, and it depicts scenes from her childhood. So you can see the boats and the houses and the buildings and the coastline that she lived on.
Well, and what I love most about it is obviously she used a variety of fabrics to make that, right? Just like a true crazy quilt. But there's the water and the pictures. It's like a big journal from her childhood.
It is, and it's so distinct and different. And again, looks as though somebody could have made it today almost.
Right, very modern look to it right now.
Yeah, and it's so nice to capture that heritage for generations to come.
Right.
Yes, because I would see it and I would immediately think of the New England coast.
Yeah, very much so.
So the next quilt is another unique example of a crazy quilt. You can see that the center is crazy quilted and it's patchwork and it's got all that intricate stitching on it. This was made in 1885 in the USA. The design of this quilt is actually quite contemporary. It's innovative and forward thinking, because what she did was she enlarged the houses, which in fact, it's rural room houses that are enlarged. It's a popular rooftop pattern that we use to this day.
Right.
But the way that she made them larger, she dwarfed the patchwork. So it's really a good juxtaposition of the patchwork on the outer edge and the homes leading to the crazy quilt in the center.
So, okay, first of all, Crazy City, I think Erica and I have lived there. But I do love the fact that it's like the schoolhouse die, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But they've added all of these tiny, tiny little pieces.
Yes, and then you look and it's standard shapes. It's blocks we identify. It's flying geese. It's pinwheel blocks. But they're so small, and it is a real juxtaposition. It's fascinating how that's put together. All the blocks on point.
Right. And the letters are great because obviously she, cut those by hand. And so they're not perfect. They're just a little bit off. But I just think it's fabulous.
And I think we did live in Crazy City.
We did.
And something like this can really demonstrate today how quilters in those times in the 1880s, they would use a design and then they would play from there. And that's the same thing we can do today with all the AccuQuilt dies. We can do something with an AccuQuilt die, and then we can do our own creative elements all around it.
Absolutely. I wonder what the makers' contemporaries thought of the creation of this. If they were like, "Ooh, that's really cool. You're doing something outside of the box, kind of different," or if they were like, "Ooh, not so much."
Yeah. But again, those blocks are on point, which is just fabulous. All right, I think next is my all-time favorite of them. It is.
This is a railroad quilt from 1888. So you can see that this is an animated American scene quilt. Right. They start in the center and they work their way around with the whimsical railroad. This really does tell a story. It depicts actually in applique the conductors, the passengers, and even a woman. And it's all dark blue indigo applique.
So, so many things I love about this, but I would totally love to recreate this because I think it's so whimsical and it tells a great story. And here in Omaha, we're the home of Union Pacific Railroad.
Right.
And it really does tell a story. But two things I love about it is the flag is not just that indigo blue, right? It's red, white, and blue.
And that's the only red.
Right, it's the only red. And she was so smart because she put her initials and the date right there in the middle of it.
That's right.
Yeah.
I would totally do that. But this, of all the ones we've seen so far, Brandy, this is my favorite.
Yeah, I love that one too. It was so nice to see that in person. So the next quilt is the Hoosiers Suffrage Quilt. This was fascinating. So this was part of a three different quilts. When you walk into the show at the very beginning, there are three very strong Americana quilts right as you walk in. And this one was so fascinating because I know from reading the description that one person alone did 2 years of research just on these names. So what would happen with this quilt was that it was a fundraiser, and every time someone donated goods or funds to the cause, their name would go on the quilt.
Wow.
So it's cotton and pieced, and it's embroidered with all of the names. It's from 1920.
Well, and how long did it take to make it, right? Because not only did because I feel like people donated and continued to donate.
Right, over time.
Right, and so I wonder if they started with, 6 stripes and then they added the 7th and the 8th or, however that worked.
Well, and it also, again, I wonder what the makers or the ladies who went together to make this and kick off this fundraiser, what they would think about it hanging in a museum of fine art today.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and this final quilt is this, I call it the Swirl. I lovingly call it the Swirl Quilt, but it's the Spectrum, it's called, from 1933. It was first seen as a black and white photo, only known as black and white. And then later when it was discovered and it came to light, it was actually a rare joy to see how much color was in the quilt and how it was actually made.
Well, Brandy, Eric and I talked about this, about the fact that kudos to whoever said, oh, here's the black and white picture, and oh, wait, here is the actual quilt.
Right, put 2 and 2 together, so to speak.
Because in your quilting head, you might have thought it was purples and blues or yellows or whatever, and it's all different colors.
And this is so stunning, and it has got, again, this could have been made yesterday.
Yeah.
This could be hanging in a museum for modern art.
Right.
Absolutely. It looks like it could be a modern raw edge applique quilt, but it was really pieced in 1933.
Amazing.
It's amazing.
Amazing.
Brandy, thank you so much for this wonderful footage of all of these quilts and for joining us today in today's show. Now, we can't wait for tomorrow's event when we get to look at even more of these great quilts with you.
Yes, it's going to be a great time.
Thanks so much.
It was my pleasure. Yeah, we'll see you tomorrow.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, Brandy. Bye.
Whew, those were amazing, weren't they?
So much. I love the fact that it's old and yet it could be modern.
Yes.
Right?
And that spectrum quilt. I mean, it's so contemporary, so but pieced. Those curves were
Right.
pieced.
Right.
So we have no reason to be afraid of curves,
No,
quilters.
none
Think
reasons.
about that.
And label your quilts.
Yes.
All right, quilters, in case you missed it, here is our special code today. It is Countdown. You can take an extra 30% off your order by using this code to save you up to 45% on dies and up to 55% on cutters. Some exclusions apply. Check the website for details.
Now, to get free standard shipping when you place your orders today, if you live in the contiguous U.S., no code or price minimum needed at checkout.
We also have another deal for you today. If you're buying dies, cubes, or accessories, orders amounting to $400 or more will receive a free Go Me fabric cutter. Our Go Me is our most lightweight cutter and is compatible with over 70% of all of our dies, so don't miss out. Some exclusions apply. Check the website for details.
Now, to get your order in during this show, you can use your phone's camera to capture the QR image and go right to the site.
If you don't have access to a QR reader, no worries. You'll just want to open up a new tab in your browser. Go to the top of the page, click on that plus sign. In the very top box, type in AccuQuilt.com/party to go to the site and place your order.
You can also find our products at your local AccuQuilt retailer. To find the retailer closest to you, check out our store locator. It's at the top of the page at AccuQuilt.com.
And remember, you can quilt now and pay later. Get your financing today at AccuQuilt.com/financing. All right, quilters, December at AccuQuilt has been the month of Let It Sew, Let It Sew, Let It Sew sweepstakes. We're giving $100 in AccuQuilt reward points to a registered viewer for each show this month, including this one. So let's announce our last winner of this prize.
Let's do it. Okay. The final winner of $100 in AccuQuilt reward points is, drum roll please, Janice I. from Loudon, Tennessee.
Congratulations. And our $500 AccuQuilt reward points grand prize winner will be announced during tomorrow's show. So make sure to just tune in to see if you won.
That's right. Okay, quilters, it is time for us to sign off from the first part of this limited series.
Now be sure to join us tomorrow at 8 p.m. Central Time for a second and final part of our Stories of American Quilt series.
We'll again be joined by Brandi to look at even more of those exhibition quilts. Make sure you register for the shows on our webpage so you can qualify to win.
Thanks for joining us today. If you've been waiting for our show to end to buy, now is that time. Here's the link to get everything you need before these items are sold out.
That's right. And remember, at AccuQuilt, we help you cut time
So you can quilt more. Goodbye.
See you tomorrow.